Hey everybody, thanks for being here. So I am embarking on Carrying the Fire podcast, and these are early episodes. And I don't know anybody that I had in mind quicker, for who came to mind first than my friend Kyle Lybarger here in North Alabama. Native Habitat Project, and we've done these podcasts before, but this is the first one for Carrying the Fire.
Well, I've carried some fire before.
No doubt. I was there too. We were actually on fire.
Yeah. That was a good time.
That was last year. So we'll get into who you are and what you do, and people probably haven't listened to the earlier podcast. But yeah, that was a controlled burning day that was like your buddy Luke said, we controlled it for about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
The rest of the day was more like fighting.
Yeah, it was the worst burn season of my life. It was the prime burn window. I was in jury duty for a week, and it just it messed me up for the whole year. I was playing catch up and felt like I was behind, and you don't want to feel like you don't want to rush, you don't want to feel behind when you're doing prescribed fire and feel like you have to do a bunch of burns, because apparently that's when you start making mistakes and start burning on days you probably shouldn't have. And so lots of lessons learned there, but it's amazing how many lessons there are to learn even after 10 years of doing something, you know. No doubt. So. And they're painful lessons, a lot of them. That one we came out pretty good. Yeah, we did. In the end, it turned out all right, but yeah. During the moment, man, it was not fun. So. It was hot, man. Yeah. Luke and I were talking about yesterday was the moment that the wind picked up that morning. It was a good day, but then the whatever you call the moisture index just fell like by degrees. You could feel it, and then those leaves got just wilder and wilder. Yeah, and I think we were dealing with a lot of crazy thermals back up there in the holler. As it got hot down below. Yeah, and it was, and we only had one leaf blower that ended up burning up. I mean, I know we could have fought that whole fire off with our one leaf blower. If the leaf blower hadn't gotten put in the fire, yeah. So that was the big mistake there that just changed the whole trajectory of the day. But like I said, lessons learned. We'll have 2 or 3 leaf blowers every time from now on. Yeah. Well, we were raking as hard as we could. We were. Yeah. Yeah. Luke and I were on our hands and knees at one point, raking with our hands, and it was it was all for nothing because the fire ended up just jumping those little lines anyways. So. Right. I tell you, one of the great things. I'd say I wasn't in charge, so I could relax more than you could. Like as the fire went up into the mountain, but late that night, that frog pond down there, that little, it's just like an ephemeral wetland, and there was a tree. I think y'all were caught up above me, but there was a tree on fire, and it had burned from the inside out, so it was like a Roman candle, and it was over the top of this ephemeral wetland that was just going nuts with frog noise. Yeah. Those would have been mountain chorus frogs. Mountain chorus frogs, and they were going wild, dude. And that image, I mean, I take away that image for the rest of my life. Probably, I'd never really gotten over how cool that was, even though it was a time of extreme. Well, you're welcome for that. I appreciate that. I really hope we can do that again sometime. You don't get those moments sitting on the couch. But, no, you don't. During that moment, I wish I was sitting on the couch. Yeah, for sure. And we'd been there since 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, just drained. It was But that's I don't know. That's what life's about, I guess. Well, they don't give that stuff away. No, they don't. Right. No. So, but I was, yeah. And you were showing us up, me and Luke, and we're, 30 years old, whatever, and you were calm and collected, hiking up a mountain, and me and Luke were all huffing and puffing, and I don't know if it was the altitude difference in what you're used to, but you're a mountain goat, man. Oh, I think living at altitude helped on that one for sure. Yeah. And then I'd lost controlled burns working for other people to the point where, I mean, I've seen the fire go out and take power lines down where the power lines were dancing in the air from the heat before they broke. Yeah. And that was when I was in my 20s. And so I felt like what we were doing there was still within the realm of, it was less than that.
We had and the guy got fined by the Forest Service, although it was a private land burn. But I'd seen fire do terrible things.
Yeah.
And where we were, there was no person in danger at that time, so I was more able to relax about it. Mm-hmm. But then again, I wasn't in charge. I mean, for you, it was just like stress, man. It's hard. It's terrifying when fire goes wild.
It is, and I mean, no matter how well you think you know fire, certain properties and the way things happen and weather changes and stuff, you never know what's going to happen.
No, it's a terrifying force, mm-hmm. And I felt that. And when Luke and I were running across that top, and we were still looking for that leaf blower, and the smoke got so heavy that not only could you not see, but you couldn't really breathe, so you had to kind of struggle with claustrophobia.
Yeah.
Did you have that too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
It was like it was sucking all the oxygen out of your space.
Yeah, which just adds to the whole panic.
Yep.
You're trying to think of what to do next, and when we went to go get fuel for the leaf blower, I was already halfway down the mountain trying to fill up a sprayer with water, and then I'm like, I had to give up on that to try to come back up and help start raking, and there's just like so many decisions to be made in a split second, and you're just sitting there trying to think, but you're deprived of oxygen and water, and you got so many things going on. It's kind of you gotta try to make the right decision, and it's I don't know. I think we did the best we could with what we had there.
Yeah.
And that's what the Forestry Commission said when they showed up, is they could tell we had tried and raked into a ton of lines, and we had, but if we had a leaf blower, it'd have been a lot easier. So.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
And for people who've never seen that, which I had never seen that, you run the leaf blower to make bare soil, mm-hmm. and that's your fire line.
Yeah.
And see, I'd never done fire down south.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it, and man, it makes things so much easier. The next day we came back, and that's what they were doing. They just ran some more lines the next morning, and it had burned over onto some timber company land out of Chattanooga, and the forester for them showed up, and I rode up to the top with him, and he was like, "Man, we've been trying to get down here for years to burn this off, and are never able to." So I was like, "Well, you're welcome. I did this one for free for you." So,
yeah.
But it kind of just worked out that it, nobody was too mad about it, and it, happened to burn over onto a place that wanted there to be fire there anyway. Right. So,
boy, I bet that place is going to be lit up with new growth now.
They said it was, like, the landowner for the place we burned said that it looked really good this year.
Yeah,
a lot of new green growth, and that was the goal to begin with. That's why we were burning, to try to encourage that. Yeah, we just encouraged it on a little more acreage than we planned on. So
right. Well, I remember me and you stopped early in that morning on the road down there, and you were pointing out, and I grew up here too. Your plant knowledge is just beyond anybody that I know personally. So.
People tell me that, and I know people who know a whole lot more than I do.
Right.
People who are actual botanists and they don't only know the plant name, they know scientific names, and they know why that plant, they know why a certain plant is identifiable. Like, I can tell you the difference. I can tell you, I don't know, a gray-headed coneflower from a Mexican hat out west or whatever. Like, I can tell which one's which. To the average person, it might not be that noticeable, but then to a botanist, they're like, "Well, this is different because there's hairs here, or there's a split here, or what." Like, there's people who are way more knowledgeable than I am, and most of what I know came from being out in the field and observing things, but there's people who also learned it in the field and also through a lot of plant keys and are trained botanists, and I have a ton of respect for those folks. So I hate to act like I know a lot about plants when there's people who actually know a lot.
I hear you. Yeah. I guess so. I don't know. I'd been traveling with you, and like, we're on this place where we're at, where I grew up. You had like, I don't know what, there was like 3 or 4 species I'd never even noticed.
Yeah.
And then when we stopped on that 4-wheeler down there the day of the fire before we got burning, it was a Mayapple kind of place, like ginseng, golden seal looking place. No ginseng in it, but you just were naming them off in there, and it was stuff that I've looked at all my life, but it's just a different way of seeing the world.
Yeah, it's. I don't know. They call that plant blindness when you just walk past stuff and your whole life. Yeah, everybody does.
Yeah.
I mean, even to this day, I still have plant blindness for certain species like sedges. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna walk right past a sedge and say that's a sedge. Mm-hmm. I might be able to tell Cherokee sedge or what bladder sedge or whatever, but like there's most of them look so similar. Like I'm gonna ignore the sedges until later in life, maybe if I decide I want to learn them all. But that's everybody. Everybody's got plant blindness for certain things.
Gotcha.
But I'll tell you the easiest way to cure that, and the way I cured it was driving around and walking so many different properties as a forester. The thing I was looking for to begin with were things that were in flower, because it's so much easier to identify something when it's in flower, and that's when things really stand out apart from each other. Their flowers are usually a lot different, whereas a lot of leaves look, that's a green leaf, that's a green leaf, and that's a green leaf.
Right.
You see certain flowers and they're kind of unmistakable.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to start. And it kind of gives you, throughout the year, if you're like, hey, starting this spring, I'm going to start learning plants. Well, each week there's something new blooming. And so that kind of gives you some time to learn things. And so,
in my case, if I look, so I'm attracted by looking at that flower, but then I study the leaf and the bark at the same time. Now I'm actually learning what the plant is when it ain't flowering.
Yeah.
The same way we were talking about trying to do all the oaks. When the leaves are off, I can't do that at all. Mm-hmm. When the leaves are on, I just know that they're all different. Yeah. I don't know what they are really, but
that's why they gave us dendrology in forestry school during the winter.
So tell me what dendrology is. That forester down in the Tuskegee was telling me that his dendrology professor this, and honestly, I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, it's just tree ID, basically, being able to identify trees and their differences. And so our dendrology class was each week we probably learn 15, 20 new trees and go out in the field and see them, and then we'd have to identify them and their scientific names, their leaves, their bark. And so we were tested on that every week, and so until you learn 160, 200 trees, something like that, and so I had a really great dendrology teacher too. It was his last year teaching.
Was that Alabama A&M?
Yeah, Kenneth Ward, and he was really big into birding, him and his wife, and so he was a great guy. Really lucked out there, and that was probably the best class I had, the best grade I had in any class. Anyways, there was a lot of classes I did not have good grades in. I failed botany before I was at Alabama A&M.
Yeah.
And so but we didn't step outside the entire class.
Gotcha.
It was all inside, looking through textbooks. And dendrology was out in the field. We were looking at trees, and that's where I thrive. That's where I learn.
Yeah.
So that's why that was probably the best class I ever had, was because we were out there actually seeing stuff, and that's.
Gotcha.
That's what gets my brain going.
Right. I couldn't have done it either. I took biology 101 and all that stuff in college. I did terrible at it, even though I'm really fascinated by that. Mm-hmm. But I also I don't have attention deficit, I don't think. I just don't. I'm lazy I'm a short attention span.
Yeah. Well, you probably deal with that too, with creativity and stuff. Like, where do you go to get your creativity flowing? Is that?
I walk. I'll go on walks, and the only downside of that, if I'm walking to get started on a story or something, I'm not really noticing everything. Like I could probably step on a rattlesnake, but if I'm walking to refill, I do notice everything. I like plant ID and what's out there, I've always done that. I got that from Nietzsche too, the philosopher. Yeah. That's how he did all his thinking, was just these long walks. And I guarantee he wasn't noticing too much. He was in his head doing Nietzsche stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's how I am in the shower. The shower does that for me.
Yeah, and other writers I've known swim laps, like young writers, not old people, but like younger writers. They swim laps in a pool where there's nothing else going on.
It must be something about dropping your body temperature or something.
Dropping your body temperature and charging it with oxygen. Mm-hmm. and I think there is a physiological explanation for inspiring it.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, then you find people that lay drunk for 3 weeks and then go write a great poem.
Yeah, I hadn't tried that one yet.
I ain't got time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But I swear, like, I've had so many good videos I think of in the shower, and then I go make it, and it just, like, blows up, and I'm like, man, I wonder why that is.
Right.
Like, there's got to be some science behind it.
There's something behind it. Let's talk about that. So for somebody that's never heard this before, and I won't say, who is Kyle Lybarger? To you, Kyle. I'm going to say, like, you've got an Instagram page, which I got onto long before I met you, Native Habitat Project. Mm-hmm. And tell me about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so it'd probably be best if I just tell you kind of how it all started. When I worked as a private forester for, I guess, from like 2018 to 2022 or so, 4 or 5 years. And during that time, I was collecting a lot of native plants. I guess 2017 is really when I started getting into plant ID, and it just really caught on. And by 2020, my wife and I started a native plant nursery. Like, as COVID was starting, like the week COVID started, I went and like spent like $1,200 on soil. And my wife was like, this is the stupidest thing ever. But we grew a bunch of native plants that I had been collecting seeds from for the 2 years prior, and started growing 75 different species of native wildflowers and grasses. And
so was your idea to have a viable business selling native seed?
That, and I couldn't find any for myself.
Right.
I was trying to find nurseries around me to get native plants to use in my landscaping, so I just decided to start growing them on my own.
Your personal landscaping?
Yes. And I went to nurseries all over North Alabama, couldn't find anything native. Like, well, I'd call one nursery and they're like, yeah, we have native azaleas. And so I'd show up and, well, none of their azaleas were actually native azaleas.
Right.
And that happened all the time. So I just decided to start growing them on my own, and we'd sell them at the farmer's market in Hartselle, and did that for 2 or 3 years. And during that time, I just decided, I think it was spring of 2021, I think, I told my wife, I said, I'm just going to start making videos about native plants, like as soon as the first thing flowers for the year. And that's what I did. I just started, a bunch of spring ephemerals came up, and I started IDing them and making videos about it, and threw it on the internet and on TikTok, and it blew up after like the third or fourth video. I think I got 10,000 views or something. And I was like, well, dang, this is pretty cool. I'm able to reach a lot more people this way. And hopefully,
that was 2017?
That was 2020.
2021. Okay, gotcha.
And so that blew up pretty quick. And had a Hartselle, I had if you've ever heard of the YouTube channel Smarter Every Day, Destin Sandlin, we went to the same high school. He was like 10 years older than me, but his sister and his mom bought some native plants from me, and then the next week him and his wife came up and bought some plants from us, and he invited us to eat dinner one night, and he just gave me a ton of advice about how to reach more people and how to be successful at creating content, and so I owe a lot to him. That's when it went from Kyle Lybarger to Native Habitat Project, and actually became something, and we were able to reach a lot of goals in a short amount of time because of his help. So
gotcha.
And he has a real big YouTube channel and following.
Gotcha.
So.
He's Smarter Every Day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. I've heard of that, but I remember when I first met you, you told me about that, and I had never heard of it at that time.
Yeah, so I owe a lot to him.
Yeah,
but
it's cool how you run into people that show you the path, open the door.
Yeah, I was just posting on TikTok at the time, but he was like, you need to have TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Patreon. He's like, you need to be posting on everything. And so that's what I did, and it went from TikTok to everything else, like kind of blew up as well. So I owe him for that, because I probably would have just stayed on TikTok. But yeah, that's the goal, was just to get people interested in native plants and kind of open up their eyes and notice what's around them. Because like you said, I mean, I considered myself an outdoorsman and lived in it my whole life, and never took the time to notice, what was growing around me, or, if something was rare or if something was common. I couldn't have told you, if I'd seen a plant before. It was just in the back of my head, I guess I never even thought about it. And so, if somebody like me who was considered themselves an outdoorsman wasn't paying attention to it, then I'm sure the general public wasn't. So I was like, how can I get this stuff in front of people?
Yeah.
And hopefully spark interest in others to pay attention to what's around them.
Yeah. So what? So there's got to be an origin story though. Like you were born and raised in Hartselle, right? Mm-hmm. And then your dad took you hunting.
Yeah.
I mean, y'all had a like, outdoor connection from the beginning.
Yeah. I was in Cub Scouts from the beginning. My dad was a big Eagle Scout. Grew up hunting and fishing in Oklahoma, and he was a senior patrol leader and a huge influence in like the 4th largest Boy Scout troop in the country.
That in Oklahoma?
Yeah, he held the record for like the most merit badges and like had like 80 merit badges. I think you had to have 25 or something like that to get Eagle, and I think I had 26. So I was not my father.
Yeah.
That was his special interest was scouting, I guess, and so he loved the outdoors.
He must have been pretty handy.
He was super like could build anything.
Right.
Could do anything. My mom was an athlete, and she played college basketball, and my dad was 6'5", so she thought she was going to have some athletic children, and that was not the case. Once I figured out I didn't have to play baseball or basketball,
yeah,
I could go and ride dirt bikes during the summer and go play in the creek. That's what I chose to do.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, my dad was a big part of that, influencing me to be in the outdoors, and my grandpa too. Well, both grandpas kind of gave us freedom to explore and, get off the couch and go out and do things in the woods that I wouldn't let my kids do now. So
right. Feral.
Yeah.
I saw that that video where you went back to Oklahoma and deer hunting, and you're in the place where your literally your grandfather's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, he has 100 acres, and I hunted it when I was a kid. I used to hunt leases with him before he had this property, which was cool. It's crazy how you remember. I don't know if you're like this, but like your first hunt, I remember every detail.
Yep.
Like I remember the car ride there. I remember opening the gate. I remember where we parked. I remember there was like a pump jack there. I can remember it squeaking. I remember when we walked up like a single trail with my uncles and my granddad and my dad to go to the tree stands. And I remember like us all looking up at the stars. There's like a ton of stars. And I had to be like 10, at this time. And I remember I fell asleep in the tree stand. It was wasn't a tree stand. It was a tree house. That's,
like a shooting house.
Yeah, no, it was a wooden platform up in a tree.
I got you.
That we were just sitting on, me and my granddad. I remember bobwhite quail coming underneath the stand.
Yeah.
But this is in Oklahoma, and it was so cold my thermos like exploded the inside, like the glass on the inside or whatever.
Wow.
That exploded, and so I couldn't drink my hot chocolate. But like that was so. I think because I remember so much of it, I think that was a pretty important part of my life. Like, and then I killed my first deer at like 13 on my granddad's place, a little 5-point out of a tree stand that they had put up off the other side of the mountain. In Oklahoma, the way they do things is everybody has their own shooting house and tree stand.
Yeah.
Like the first time you go hunting, you put up a tree stand or a shooting house, and then that's your spot. Gotcha. And every time you go hunting,
you got to go back there.
You got to go to your spot. Everybody else is going to their spots.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the deer are doing. You're going to your spot no matter what.
Yeah.
And so our spot was off the back of the mountain, like it was a plateau. And this year I went up there, and there's pimple mounds all over the top of this plateau. It's really cool. Have you ever seen those pimple mounds?
No.
Oh, it's they're Arkansas and like Louisiana. They have a ton of them. But here in Oklahoma, I'm getting off subject now.
No, let's keep. I want to hear. I don't know what that is.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's a huge mystery how these pimple mounds form. But they're basically like maybe you can see them on LiDAR really easy, but it's maybe 1 or 2 foot elevation change over like a 30-foot area. So it might be a 35-foot or 30-foot wide mound that's like a foot or two higher than the surrounding landscape. And they think how it forms is like you might have had like a thicket of shrubs or something growing there. And over the years, leaves piled up around those shrubs, and then the soil as it was blowing would pile up around those shrubs until it created a little mound. And so they think the wind had a lot to do with that.
Gotcha.
Now you can go back and you can see where everywhere that's been disked and plowed. You can see everywhere that hasn't been disked or plowed because the prairie has those mounds.
Gotcha.
And so the top of this plateau had those mounds, which, it's super interesting to think about how long it took to form those.
Right.
But I think that's how they were made.
Yeah.
I think it's still a debate. I don't know. A lot of people were like, oh, it's like ground sloths or it's prairie dogs.
Right.
But I think that's how a lot of them were formed. But
well,
so the top of the mountain had
time.
Yeah, time. The top of the mountain had a lot of pimple mounds. I just noticed that this year looking at LiDAR. But anyways, my dad stand off the back of the mountain. I shot my first deer at 13 with him sitting out of that stand, and then he killed I think it was 2010. It was or 2011. It was 15 years ago. He killed a good deer out of that stand, and then nobody's hunted it really since. And so I got up there this year. I was, finally at that point in my life where I can afford to buy an out-of-state license for Oklahoma, which I probably shouldn't have, but it's like, I don't have many years left to hunt with my granddad.
Right.
And so I bought an out-of-state license and went up there. And then the first day, rifle season opened the next day, but the first day I walked off the back of the mountain to go check on because I was fully expecting having to put up a lock on or something, and or hunt out of my saddle or whatever. And anyways, the stand was still there. The tree, you could tell, was just starting to die, but it was solid, man. Like I tested it, shook it, and it's like solid. Straps were solid. I hit them and solid.
Yeah.
And so I was like, heck, I'm just gonna hunt out of this. I'll just put I'll use my saddle and lock onto the tree just as a harness or whatever. So the next morning I got down there and sitting there for, I guess, an hour, and a pig came out, and I shot at a pig. It was pretty far off, but
people were trying to get rid of the pigs, right?
Yeah, it ran away. Yeah, and the pigs ran off the turkeys. This is the first year that the pigs that they've had pigs and turkeys for some reason, but then about an hour later, I hear a doe or something blowing up behind me, and I look up, and I just see a big rack running off, and I was like, dadgummit, I spooked it when I turned around. I turned around too fast and spooked it. Well, no, I hear it blowing again, and here comes a doe running back towards me down the hill, and then behind her's a buck, and, stopped him, and he's a big old tree between me and him. I could just see his neck, and all I'm noticing is all right, he looks like a good buck. I'll shoot him, and then I'm waiting for him to take one step, and he took that one step, and that was it. He died right there, and so I waited on my uncle to get down there, and he's been battling colon issues, and so he's not in the best shape. And when my other uncle, my dad's brother, drug the deer up onto the plateau with my dad, it was so bad. He was like, that was the day he quit smoking. He was like, I'm not smoking after this. He said he never smoked a cigarette again. He was like, that was it for me, dragging that deer up that hill. So me and my uncle were like, oh gosh, what are we going to do there? So we drug it around the side of the mountain and to the road, and then we walked back up to the top to tell my granddad, and he's just sitting in you can see his orange hat.
Dozing out.
You see his orange hat like this. And we walk up to it, and my uncle pulls up on the side-by-side right in front of the stand, right in front of his shooting house. My granddad's still like this. Just laid out, sleeping. Didn't even hear the side-by-side pulled up.
Yeah.
So I knock on his door. He gets out. He's like, did you get you one? I said, yeah, I got one. It's a pretty good one, I think. And he was like, well, good deal. I was like, do you see anything? No. He never sees anything. He never sees anything. My uncle hunted with him this year. He hunted the stand with him. He said they saw 4 or 5 deer. He was trying to get my granddad to shoot one. He couldn't see any of them. Mm-hmm. He's just I think he's in denial about how bad his vision is. Uh-huh. But he couldn't hear him or see him. And but he goes, he stays down there for a whole week at camp. No running water, no electricity, just sleeping in a refrigerated trailer, an old refrigerated trailer, thick walls.
Yeah.
I mean, you get 3 guys in there, and it's like you have to crack the door open because it just body temperature heats that place up. And but he stays down there for a week, no shower or nothing, and he don't plan on killing nothing.
He's just there for that for the hunt.
Yeah, I tried to shoot one for him this year. I'm like, Poppy, let me come let me hunt with you, and I'll shoot one for you just so Meemaw has some deer meat.
Yeah.
He's like, no. He's like, oh, it'll be all right. He said, I'll shoot one. I'm like, he ain't gonna shoot one, but he just does it to get away and be out in nature, I think, and enjoy the land. So
that's the first hunting you'd done there since your dad passed away.
Yeah, and it's out of his stand.
What a profound.
Yeah,
that's hardcore.
Yeah, out of the same stand I shot my first deer out of, sitting next to my dad. And, so it was It was a full circle moment. It was really special, and I don't know. I'm sure it's a coincidence, but like the rock that this thing was standing next to when it fell down was shaped like a heart. Mm-hmm. It was like, and it just gave me chills. Like, I'm like, man, what are the chances of that?
Yeah.
I mean, this thing was like, you couldn't pick it up if you wanted. It was huge, but it was like shaped like a heart. And I'm just like,
wow.
I don't know. That can't be a coincidence.
The world's sending you messages.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, man.
It was really cool to experience that with my granddad and my uncle. And then my uncle shot a real good deer the next evening. And so we had, I think that was the first time the Lybarger hunting camps ever had, 2 real good deer like that in camp. And us, it was me, my 2 uncles, and my granddad, and we all just got to, 3 generations hang out and cook over the fire and clean deer together. And it was just a good time. So,
were any of them interested in the same things you are? Like in plants and stuff, other than just like being outdoors?
Not really. My granddad grew up. His mom was really into mushroom hunting, and so that's what they did all the time, was hunt mushrooms in the woods. Mm-hmm. And then his dad was a tugboat captain. They lived on the river. He won't eat fish to this day because that's all he ate.
Because that's all they ever had.
Yeah.
What river?
Missouri River. Yeah, in Missouri.
Yeah.
And so they duck hunted a lot. I mean, he has bands like that his dad had shot ducks with bands, and so they grew up living off the land. And my granddad was the youngest of 5 and had 4 older sisters, and so they just lived off the land, mushrooms and hunting and fishing.
That's pretty deep knowledge to be able to do mushrooms without poisoning yourself too.
Yeah, or your children. That's the scary part. Is feeding stuff to your kids.
Right.
I'll eat a lot of things I'm not going to feed my kids.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, you were born in Hartselle though, not in Oklahoma.
No, I was born in Hartselle. My dad met my mom, and she was from Alabama, and at the time she was still in college playing basketball, but she grew up on Sand Mountain in Rainsville, and my grandparents were Geraldine and Fife, but they moved to Hartselle, and that's where my mom went to high school, was in Hartselle. So
gotcha.
That's where I've been ever since.
So Fife, Alabama. Yeah, man.
Yeah. That's,
did you ever go over there when you were little?
Yeah, well, growing up, we'd go over there every Mother's Day and visit cemeteries and go eat with family and stuff. But all that land went to they had to sell it off, taking care of their parents and stuff. And so,
right, as people do.
Yeah, exactly. So you're lucky if you don't have to do that. But that's a cool area. I like it a lot.
It is. Yeah.
My grandma over there grew up. Eating she always talked about eating blueberry pie, like wild blueberries.
Yep.
And she still had her mom's pie recipe. Like they would change it for like apples and whatever, peach. And my mom can make it pretty good. And I think it was 2 years ago, 4th of July, me and Ellie picked a bunch of blueberries and wild blueberries, and my mom made it into a pie. And my grandma was over, so she got to eat wild blueberry pie. Like she hadn't gotten to eat since she was a kid.
Right.
So that was pretty cool, like being able to reconnect some of that.
Yeah.
It's weird how just past generations, they wouldn't say that they were connected to the landscape. They just didn't think anything of it, but they were way more connected to their food was to the land than we are now,
For sure. And I want to get Phyllis Light Arab back on here, but what she called that, her dad called that cleaning.
Yeah.
and they would go out on Saturday morning and they would go gleaning, and that was just like picking berries. Or he had like a idea of where old homesteads were that had apple and pear and peach trees, but that nobody was living and didn't care, you know, like, and but that was gleaning, and it included like catching brim and stuff.
Yeah, cool.
Anything that you could get. I didn't me either. I was that was their family, you know.
Yeah, that's neat. Yeah. We did that as kids, picking pecans and stuff.
Yep.
But it was like cemeteries and schools, and we'd go to places other people weren't picking the pecans; they were just going to waste. And,
Yep.
And my grandparents in Oklahoma loved, I guess they do. They probably have some pecan trees, but my dad, when we'd go up there on Thanksgiving, always bring a bucket of pecans. So I did that this year for my grandma. I had a bunch cracked and brought her a 5-gallon bucket full, and
cool.
she's like, I have to buy them in the store now. She's like, I hadn't got Alabama pecans since your dad was alive. So that was pretty neat.
Did you put them in a cracker?
So my neighbor down the road he's passed away now, but him and my dad used to have like a bartering system. Like he would my dad worked for a propane company, and he had a filling station at the house. So my dad would show up and there'd be like 5 empty propane cylinders in our driveway. He'd go fill them up. And then one day, he'd put them back in the driveway, and then one day he'd come home, and the propane tanks would be replaced with like cracked pecans. So my neighbor down the road had like a homemade pecan cracker. Yep. And then he eventually made a better one that did a little bit better of a job. But I still could do that if I wanted to. They'd probably let me. But
they still got the cracker.
Yeah. Yep. They said they'd give me the one that doesn't work real good, but. You can also just take them to the farmer's market and they'll crack them, and it's a lot cleaner. And so that's what we usually take them up to the co-op, and not the farmer's market, the co-op.
Co-op. Huh.
Yeah, the co-op has a pecan cracker.
Yeah, my sister sent me a whole bunch this year that came from Kentucky, and they have like a community cracker, and they spin. Have you ever seen this? So they spin them, and it just cracks them enough to where it's easy to get the nut meats out of them.
Yeah.
And you don't have to sit there one after another with the crab crackers.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's a lot cleaner too.
Totally clean. Yeah. Well, that's cool. Yeah, we used to rake them out of the parking lot at my father's office. Yeah. Sweep them up. And those were paper shells. Yeah. But they were small.
Well,
these things we got from Kentucky. They're some mega pecans like you'd cry. They weren't anything compared to what we had growing up.
Yeah, well, Hartselle Farmers Market. That's that tree up there. They paved under it, I guess last year, and so now that's the one my dad died while he had a heart attack while knocking pecans out of a pecan tree.
Gotcha.
And that's the one he died at. Now when they hit the ground, they hit that concrete and just bust open and crack.
Right.
And so it's like. It's I guess it's not a huge issue, but you
we got to get them quick.
Everywhere. Yeah, exactly. So
how old were you when he passed away?
24.
24. Yeah. And there's a correlation between men's success. A lot of times when their fathers pass away earlier, and their success with their somehow drive or something. And I don't think you could bet the farm on it, right? But
there's seems like 2 ways to respond to it.
Right.
Yeah, and I knew I wasn't gonna drink myself away, so that wasn't an option for me. So.
Right.
Yeah, so that it definitely changed me. Like I didn't care like before that. Like going to knock on somebody's door to ask permission to hunt it or eventually I'd knock on people's door to ask about their timber when I was buying timber. That's something that I would have had to sit there and prepare for a week to go build up enough courage to go knock on somebody's door. But after that, after my dad died, it wasn't even a second thought. I just didn't even think about it. I just go knock on somebody's door. I'm after that, it's what's the worst thing that can happen to you?
You were emboldened. Yeah. And that's interesting. It
is.
Yeah, I can't remember what philosopher said it, but it was the terrible freedom.
Yeah.
When your father's gone, and that really rang true. I was way old when my daddy passed away here in this house, but there is it's a terrible freedom. That's what it's called. And I was like, that's it. I get it.
Yeah.
Because now it's on you, man.
Yeah.
And it's not somebody asking you whether you did right today. It's something, there is nobody there. It's you. You got to do it.
Yeah, I was down. We were at the Alabama Burden Festival this year, and one of the last stops is at the Sumter Farms, this incredible place. And one of the sisters, I was talking to her, and I was like, "What do you do for a living?" She's from Chattanooga, and she's like, "I like help deal with family situations and things that happen in the family that like are traumatic." And I was like, "Oh, that's really interesting." And of course that came out, and so the week that I got married, I was on my honeymoon, which my wife had I guess at the time she was 4. When we started dating, she was 3 years old, Ellie. And so I became a father, a husband, and lost my dad in the same week. And she was like one of those events. She's like, one of those events is usually what I'm dealing with, like in a family. And she's like, you had 3 of them in the same week. And I was like, dang, I never, I guess, really thought about it like that. But it really was like that moment. It was like a light switch. It's like everything changed after that. I knew I had to do something different. And I did spend a lot of time outdoors. That's when I started spending a lot of time outdoors, learning plants and stuff. And so that was a major part of it. But that, it's something about losing a father. It's like the best. It's like the best and the worst thing that could ever happen to you.
Right.
Like,
It's the terrible freedom. I was amazing. What years of that, you were finding those incredibly rare plants.
Yeah.
In the most unlikely places right after that. And what inspired that? I remember me and you talking about that story, not on the podcast either, but like you were finding stuff that were remnants of the ancient old grasslands, not ancient, but pre-Euro settlement.
Yeah.
In like the Dollar General parking, what was that
just
thing?
Crazy places. But like one of them was, just on the side of the road in the city limits in between 2 houses, a lot that nobody ever built a house on. There was Porter's goldenrod that was, at the time, was only known from one location in Tennessee. They had thought the population in Alabama had been extirpated in 2003. So it hadn't been seen for 20 years in Alabama, and I rediscovered it.
How did you know what it was?
So I had seen the population in Tennessee, and I knew that it had been found in Alabama previously, and just happened to be like the location it was found previously was like a mile from my house. So
Did you learn that in college?
No, I learned that from Dwayne Estes. When I was posting.
That's cool, man.
So I was posting.
All right.
I was posting on Facebook about a ton of rare plants I was finding, and he was like, "Hey, I see you're looking at plants in Alabama. Keep an eye out for this one." He sent me the pin, and I'm like, "Dude, that's a mile from my house." He's like, "No way." He's like, "Well, keep an eye out for it."
And what was Southeastern Grasslands? Dwayne Estes is Southeastern.
They started in 2016.
Okay.
So they had just started. So I was keeping an eye out for it. This was 2020, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is 2020. It was in September. I went and seen the population in Tennessee, and it wasn't flowering. All the plants were small and stunted. I got back to Alabama, and the one location that I was like, that lot's kind of grown up. Like it doesn't get mowed a lot. It was in like prime Savannah. Like it was kind of a spot I had my eye on for it. I immediately stopped there when I got back from Tennessee to see it, and there was like 20 plants in bloom when the ones in Tennessee weren't blooming. And so that was pretty cool. That got published as rediscovering it for Alabama. So that was a pretty neat find. And then another population ended up being found in Morgan County as well. So now there's 3 known populations. And I've spread, I think I've got 2 other sites that we've got porters introduced to now. So what's kind of cool is like I was able to look at that site where it's growing and say, all right, well, here's like, you got some hairy spiderwort, you got mower's rosinweed, you got this weird species of Coreopsis, little blue stem, and you're kind of able to build like a plant community it exists with. So like maybe these are species it associates with, and so when I drive around, keep an eye out for other populations of that mowers, or when I see all those other species growing together, I'd be like, okay, well, this seems like it'd be a good spot to reintroduce porters.
Yeah.
And so we grow it out from seed and go plant plugs and reintroduce it to some of these locations. So there'd be backup populations of it. So,
and this is all on private land.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so the emboldened nature of asking, I noticed one of the things I noticed about on early when I first started following your Instagram was like you just say, "Hey man, can I go check this out?"
Yeah.
And everybody, it seemed like almost everybody was like, "Sure."
Yeah. And the only lady who wasn't like that was the porter side.
Uh-huh.
That was the only like person that has ever like, no, I don't want anybody out there. I don't want you collecting seeds. And I respected that. Even though I got some seeds, but that was, maybe in the dark of night there might have been a few seeds collected, but I respected it, and I was like, this is the only population in Alabama. Like, if these seeds are lost, then like it's the whole species lost. Mm-hmm. But turns out, another family had me come out to look at their property, and I put two and two together that this lady worked for this person whose property I was on at the time. And so I asked him, I said, "Do you know this person?" And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, I told him the whole situation. He's like, "Oh, her husband just passed away." And he was like, "So that's probably why she was acting like that." And I was like, "Would you mind talking to her?" And he was like, "Yeah, absolutely." So he talked to her, and her tune changed, and she was like, "Yeah, you can go out there and collect seeds and document it or whatever."
Yeah.
But I still had to be careful, like, because it only had 20 plants. Like, I couldn't tell other botanists about it, and like even the people, like, I couldn't tell anybody this location because I'm like, even botanists are going to want to collect specimens,
right,
to put in herbariums, and the population was so small, like 20 plants there. Like, even taking one plant to for one herbarium, like, and then somebody else is like, "Hey, I'd like to have a plant too," and like, by the end of it, there's 4 or 5 plants gone. Like, that's a quarter of the population.
Right.
Like, yeah. So I couldn't risk that. So one botanist knew about it, and we kept it on the down low for the location for years until we kind of got some other plants growing. And there's a lot of seed now. Like, Birmingham Zoo has some of those plants growing there. Waterworks in Hartselle, we just planted some big Porter's goldenrods plants there this year, right by the front door. Uh-huh. So like every kid that goes there to look at their fish and it's like they have a huge outdoor facility there to teach kids about nature. As they walk in the door and they walk right by one of the rarest plants in the world.
That's way cool.
Yeah, so it's pretty neat. So,
Did you get hooked on the idea of finding rarities? It didn't seem like you did, really.
No, like it wasn't like a trophy hunt or anything for me. Like, it was more about finding things that needed help, that needed some managing to be able to thrive again, and the history of it too. These places were being erased, and I was finding spots that I would come back to see, 4 foot of fill dirt on top of them or whatever. And so it was more about protecting these places while we can, because nobody else is. Like, I mean, then they're like, what organization is, like, who can I call to tell about this plant on the side of the road?
Right.
Like, if the landowner doesn't care about it, then there's nothing we can do. It could be lost forever, and there's nothing protecting it. There still isn't. Like, plants don't have any protection,
right,
but plants are like the base. That's the foundation of everything. Like, without the plants, you don't have the animals, you don't have insects,
right,
you don't have anything. Like, it's the foundation. That's the habitat. When you talk about wildlife habitat isn't the rocks and the dirt. It's the plants that are growing there, around those things. Like, without it, you have no cover. You have no nesting habitat, brooding habitat. You have nothing to feed on. You have no seeds. Like, that's the source of everything. So, to me, the plants, they should have more protection than wildlife. I mean, I feel like they're just as important, if not more important.
It's just that human beings can relate more to the wildlife.
Yeah, they're cute.
They're cute, or they're beautiful, or interesting. You one of the things I got from following you. So I'm one of the 450,000 people that follow you on Instagram. But one of the things I got from you was the relationship. So I should have. This was new to me, even though it shouldn't have been. All of our native insects co-evolved with this incredibly diverse suite of native plants. And so you may have honeybees, which are not native, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you may have a million different stingless bees and all these strange creations, that live in North Alabama.
Yeah.
But if you plant all camellias, those things don't know how to work with them.
Yeah, no.
They don't. They're co-evolved with this suite of very obscure natives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the state flower of Alabama, the camellia.
Right.
I think we were talking about that yesterday.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to get off topic of your question, but yeah, that they have to have those plants. Like there's, and I think Doug Tallamy talks about the oaks having 900 plus species of Lepidoptera that need oaks as a host plant.
Right.
And
each different kind of oak.
Yeah. And so you might have the ginkgo tree that has no host. Like I think it used to be native to North America like millions of years ago or whatever, but like it has no host species in North America, whereas you can plant an oak that has 900, and it's no different for flowers and other things. I mean, you can plant flowers that have no host species, or you can plant I strictly planted in my front flower bed like maypops, like passion flower, golden Alexander, milkweed, and so like you can see it the first year you plant those. You've got Gulf fritillaries, you've got black swallowtail caterpillars on the golden Alexanders, you've got monarchs on the milkweed. Like it's like immediately those things show up, and it's very obvious. But there's also insects that just need to feed on those species, and they might not be as obvious as those host species that need them to raise their young. So it's a lot more important than people think.
Oh, it's like underneath our vision.
Yeah.
Like you're talking about plant blindness. Well, there's a blindness to a whole like layer cake of stuff going on. I was thinking about down here, we have a area we keep mowed out and cleared, but on the either side of that's changing to max. If we keep the timber out of it, it needs burning. Mm-hmm. But the bugs, the diversity of bugs is incredible.
Yeah. Oh, and we did a lady's front yard 4 or 5 years ago. We planted she has a long driveway with fields, pastures on each side that she cut hay off of. One side we planted a diverse native mix on. Now you go out there, the other side is still a hayfield. You go out there and stand in her driveway, and the amount of noise coming from your right is just unbelievable. And then to your left, it's just silence.
Wow.
And it's like you can hear the difference. You can walk through it and see it too, all the caterpillars and stuff on everything. But you can hear it, and that's pretty incredible to me. And so if you're looking over a field in the summertime and it's complete silence, that should be concerning to you,
Right.
But
that one of the things I noticed too in yours is and you don't do this on purpose. This is just part of it. It's a window into like infinite diversity that I was fascinated by, because a lot of it is under the radar, right?
Yeah.
Like I consider myself a noticer.
Yeah.
But there's limits, and this is a window, and the cool thing about what you're introducing people to is that the closer you look, the more there is to notice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And do you have that in your? I mean, you have it in your videos, but like, was that something that attracted you into this, or was it just still, here it is? This is what I like.
Yeah, it's like there's still. The places that I first got started on managing is one of the most biodiverse, glades that I still have ever been on to this day. And every time I go up there, I still find new things. It's like constantly, there's new things either showing up or things that I've missed in the past. And that's what interests me, is like, we'll never know it all.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's crazy how unique of a place we live, and it gets so little attention.
Right.
And one thing that concerns me is as at a percentage level, if you take the percentage of public land on each state, and you look at Alabama, I mean, Alabama's ranked what? Like,
close to the bottom.
No, well, for that, but for biodiversity, we're ranked like one of the first, second, third up there. We're like one of the most biodiverse places in the world.
In the world, for sure. And
especially
mussel species, darter species,
turtles,
freshwater turtles. Worth and I were talking this morning about. So this is Southern Cumberland's where we're sitting.
Yeah.
But, and then you showed me this. I was like, well, the sour wood that the bees need for this kind of special honey, it lives on top. And you said, well, that's because that's sandstone on top. And this limestone down here, they don't live on limestone.
No.
I always thought it was an elevation thing, but it's not. It's a chemistry thing.
Yeah.
So,
but we were ranked number one in carnivorous plants too, and I can show you a field in Athens right now where they're putting a Dollar General on top of carnivorous plants. I mean, and we're the most biodiverse place in the world for carnivorous plants.
Right.
But then when you look at our public lands, we're 38th out of 50.
In acreage.
Yeah. In percentage. Yeah.
Yeah, and what's protected.
Yeah, and so less of Alabama is protected than most of the states in the country, yet we're one of the most biodiverse. Like it doesn't make sense to me. But that's not to say
it's hard to watch what's happening here. I want to talk about your goals here in a minute, like what it would take to make things better.
Yeah.
One of the things about the biodiversity in Alabama is the fall line to the Piedmont. Above the fall line, it's totally different. And then right here, Cumberland's, but if you go down at Phyllis Light's place at Arab, Brindley Mountain, it's Appalachian.
Yeah.
So you have these completely different mountain ecotones coming together with completely different plants.
Yeah.
I mean, what, like anybody's ever been to Fiery Gizzard can tell you that place is wild.
Yeah.
With the cucumber trees and the leaves like that are as big as a man.
Yeah, those big leaf magnolias.
Big leaf magnolia, is that the same thing?
Yeah, well, there's cucumber magnolia and there's big leaf magnolia, but there's the big leaf ones are incredible.
Yeah,
Bankhead's full of
them. The Bankhead's full of them.
Yeah, they're really cool. But yeah, the geography changes across the entire state, and that's what I was talking to somebody this week about. I was like, if it was up to me choosing what land needs protected in Alabama, before I get into this, I want to say too, I was saying that we have hardly any public land, but private land is just as important. I mean, we can do. I've seen private properties far better than any public land in Alabama. So I'm not saying private lands can't manage, but it seems like nowadays if it's private land, it's at risk of being developed or lost. So,
right.
But anyways, back to what I was getting at. If it was up to me on what land gets protected in Alabama, I would break it up into physiographic regions and say, all right, well, the Cumberland Plateau, we have Bankhead National Forest. We have a pretty large chunk over here on this side of the plateau protected. Maybe on this part of the plateau, we could protect a little bit more. But like the Molten Valley, we only have, it's 400,000 acres, and we have, the only Molten Valley prairie we have protected is Prairie Grove Glades, which is 250 acres. So 250 acres.
What's that place called?
Prairie Grove Glades. It's owned by the Nature Conservancy. Lots of rare plants, but in the Molten Valley, we only have 250 acres of 400,000 acre physiographic region.
Crazy.
I mean, we should be identifying all these special, these physiographic areas in the state and say how much percentage of land do we have protected in these areas and find our weak points and focus on those and conserving unique ecosystems to those. Because I guarantee you, you go to the Coosa Valley, there's going to be rare Coosa Valley prairie, rare plants there. You go to the Piedmont, there's going to be rare ecosystems there. I mean, the fall line, all those, black belt, each area is unique and has unique ecosystems.
Right.
And we need to figure out what those are and is it being protected. And I feel like that's where we should be focusing on with these, like Forever Wild. They've got millions and millions of dollars to spend on protecting lands in Alabama.
Right.
Well,
it's one of the best programs in the United States.
Yeah, it's incredible.
If we can make it work.
Yeah,
right.
we should be taking advantage of it and protecting the places that really deserve it. And also trying to create better access and add on to areas we already have to create migration corridors and, focus on all those things as well, but also tie in those areas that need protected the most. And
so is the future in that Forever Wild money maybe on conservation, even on private land to protect biodiverse plants? Or
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know if they're able to do that. I'm sure there's an answer to that, and they may be. But, I mean, I tried to have 1,000, 1,200 acres. I guess at the time it was 800 acres protected in the Molten Valley this year. It was the perfect case scenario because it was in the Molten Valley, but it went up the Cumberland Plateau and bordered Bankhead. So it was already bordering existing public lands, which is a huge plus for Forever Wild. And it was in a different physiographic region that doesn't have any public lands. Mm-hmm. Well, the whole process we went through, it takes like 3 votes, which they have a vote every quarter. So it took like a year before we were even able to like say, okay, we're ready to buy it. And by then, it had all been split up by the real estate company that owned it into 100 pieces. And so there's like nothing left of it.
Right.
And so they weren't able to work fast enough. And so that's the only flaw I've seen with Forever Wild. Is the speed at which they can,
identify and protect.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it takes a little bit of time.
It took forever to get the walls of Jericho, too.
Yeah. And so it's like it's like almost like we need an organization to buy stuff and then have it bought by Forever Wild or something.
Right.
I don't know.
Which is a standard thing at the Nature Conservancy. They prefer a placeholder, usually.
That's what happened, I think, with Prairie Grove Glades is they wanted Forever Wild to buy it, and then it got voted down, and that was a mess. So they're kind of stuck with it now, and it's out of their range of area that they can really focus on and manage it. So they don't have anybody up here in this part of the state to work on that area and do burns or remove invasives or whatever. So
gotcha.
But yeah, that's the Nature Conservancy is great. They're doing a lot of good stuff, and they're focusing on a lot of carnivorous plant spots and protecting them. We got to see a lot of those this year, and it was really cool.
Yeah, I haven't, and I missed the bloom in that. I was in Conecuh National Forest, and that place has got like massive pitcher plant glades. Yeah. And I want to ask you about limestone glades too before we get too wore out. But
was that you?
No, that was the fire. I noticed there was fire coming up.
Yeah,
and
hold the flame.
Yeah, carrying the flames. Yeah. That pitcher plant area. Are you familiar with why they eat bugs?
No.
It's they lack something in the soil.
Really?
That the bugs have in them. That's why they've evolved to have.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's the craziest story. Like when I was in Apalachicola and Conecuh, I started just reading about it. It's the craziest story that they evolved with these sticky insect traps to replace something that is not in the dirt.
Yeah.
That they need.
Yeah.
And it just it's like one of those windows into like creation.
Yeah.
Where you can get religious about it, or you can just say it's the greatest mystery on this earth. You can explain it however you want. It doesn't get any less mysterious.
No. Yeah, it's crazy. It was, I got to see all the pitcher plants down in South Alabama this year on some Nature Conservancy land, and sitting there looking at them, and there's bobwhite whistling behind me, and it's like so similar like to a fin that I was trying to protect behind my house and in Hartselle this past year that was lost to a development. You had the yellow-eyed grass. It had species of Rudbeckia. It had a bunch of meadow beauties. It was like it had a lot of the same species, just a different version of that species as what our fin in North Alabama had. It's just our fin in North Alabama.
Say what a fin is.
So a fin is like a calcareous like a seep in the soil. So a bog is acidic, and these fins are calcareous limestone-based soils.
Okay.
And so that's the difference between like a fin and a bog.
Okay.
And so it's just a seep. The back of my property is one. And before we bought it in 2000, my parents, a pond was dug back there. So before the pond was dug, I'm sure it was just a big spring coming up out of the ground.
Yeah.
But that's where I found federally endangered Tennessee yellow-eyed grass in my own backyard last year, I guess August, not this past August, but the August before. So like a year and a half ago, and I've lived there my whole life.
Yeah.
Just found a federally endangered species on mine and 3 of my neighbors' properties, and the property that just got developed all had this federally endangered plant on it in this fin. And it's like, talk about plant blindness. Like that was my thing, was finding rare plants. And I had one in my backyard.
Yeah.
The whole time.
Yeah.
How crazy is that?
Right.
And so that's how little we're paying attention to this stuff.
Right.
Like that's what I do is find rare stuff, and I didn't notice that one. Which there's 23 species of yellow-eyed grass in the state.
Yeah.
And I just happened to take a picture of this one, and I was showing Dwayne Estes' fin. It's always Dwayne finding it. Dwayne is really the one who's finding the things that I find. So he's like, I show him a picture of something, and he's like, whoa, 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 whoa.
There it is.
Scroll back. Let me see that. And he can tell that this yellow-eyed grass, and all 23 of them are like, that's yellow-eyed grass, you know. I don't know which one, but that's yellow-eyed grass. He's like, what? The way that one leaf is like twisting makes me think it's a Tennessee yellow-eyed grass. And I'm like, there's no way. So I had Brian Keener come up, and he looked at it. Yep, that's what it is. Tennessee yellow-eyed grass, federally endangered, 8 populations in the world or whatever,
Wow.
you know, like hardly any. And it's in my backyard in a fin, like crazy.
So all of this was another thing I got onto you with is this is all part of a massive grassland that was when we all talked about Tennessee Valley and Worth was asking me about around here. This used to be a mountain pasture here. It was grazed and probably burned, and whether that was good or bad, right? Because a lot of the native species are gone from there.
Which is why you have like smoke tree that likes to grow on open glades and rocky mountains. Have you been to the Ozarks?
I have been to the Ozarks.
Like the like Hercules Glade up there, like Ozark. What is that? The Mark Twain National Forest.
Yep.
Has those huge limestone balds, smoke tree all over them.
Okay, gotcha. I've never been there.
Which I mean, you look up here, you know, you got the surrounding areas, chinkapin oaks,
Right.
hickories. And what do you see up there? Chinkapin oaks, hickories,
And then
and you got smoke tree on those limestoney flats.
Limestone flats.
And like those little bands, and you see the same thing up there in the Ozarks.
Gotcha.
And so you see how open those Ozarks are, and they
Yeah.
got smoke tree. Makes me think that these were a lot more open than they are now too.
Yeah, and I don't doubt that. I think that they grazed this in the 1930s, but I think they were grazing existing open country. Because if you look at all those terraces down there, those are put in the Dust Bowl years, when they started federally funding terrace work.
Yeah.
So all of this was really heavily used in the 30s.
Yeah.
But it was probably grassland country when it was John Challenge Cherokee Reservation was right down here.
Yeah.
It was an all-flyer piece of Cherokee ground.
Huh. Well, you know, like the first aerial photos, like the oldest aerial photos you can find in Alabama are from the 40s, 1940. And there's terraces everywhere.
Yeah.
So that had to be, I knew it was
Well, they
like
were
the 30s.
losing dirt like nobody's
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
I mean, you ever seen that book in now in praise of famous gullies?
No.
It's about that.
Oh, in a book about Wheeler, I saw they had these huge gully washes over near Triana.
Yep.
And I would love I'd give anything to go see that, because I wonder if it was really a gully or if it was like a lick, if it was like one of those highly erodible soil areas where bison would go to wallow and live.
Yeah. And so that's what I want to talk with
cool.
Southeastern Grassland tomorrow about is the bison work, and you've done part of it. Didn't y'all have a co-evolved, an interesting plant down by Cortland?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So, well, Luke and I, you went there with me, did you? Yeah. We like to look through old survey records and read old writings, and there's a book in North Alabama. SGI could probably tell you all about it too. It's called Early Settlers of Alabama, and there was a part in it where it talked about as late as 1824, you could still see bison trails knee deep going to and from the licks in this county, and it was talking about Lawrence County.
Oh, yep.
And so
Is that Moulton Valley?
It's it's on top. So it's Little Mountain. It's at the base of Little Mountain. Okay, so you have the Cumberland Plateau, Bankhead. Bankhead drops off. Where it drops off is still Cumberland Plateau until you get to the limestone. That's Moulton Valley. Where Moulton Valley starts to drop off, for some reason, that little drop off from the transition drop off from the Moulton Valley to the Tennessee Valley is called Little Mountain.
Okay.
And so this is at the base of Little Mountain in the Tennessee Valley. But we were also finding licks on top of the Little Mountain into the Moulton Valley through old survey records. So like when it was surveyed in the 1810s, 1820s, a surveyor would say, so at this section corner, we'd walk 13 chains west, which is 66 foot.
times 13.
Times 13. And so I was able to measure that off. And he says, we crossed a small lick. Well, that lick is now the bare dirt front yard of a trailer park. You know, you're like, these people just got their dogs out there wallering in the dirt all day. That's why it's bare and there's no grass growing there. But no, there's no grass growing in this trailer park because it was a lick.
Oh,
it was a small lick that they were observed in the 1810s.
Yeah.
And so we've been able to and so then I look at the soil. What's the soil? Well, the soil type for that exact location is a type of soil called Licksdale soil. And you're like, well, crap. Can I look up Licksdale soil on these other sites in the Molten Valley? And does that mean that they could be licks too? Well, you go and you look. Well, a lot of these areas with Licksdale have been turned to ponds.
Because they were wallered out.
Yeah, so maybe was it because they were a waller, like a lick before? Or were they surveyed as Licksdale soil because they're now a pond? I don't know. There's some questioning there. But anyways, we've found all these licks along this area that was kind of used to be a trace, and so at the bottom down in Cortland, there's a spring south of Cortland that we were able to identify where it was at and look at it on LiDAR, and you can see these webs through this rocky area where it couldn't have been a skidder. There's these webs of like trails, and so you can still see those. They're not deep anymore. They might be 6 inches deep, but you can still see these trails on LiDAR that they were observing in 1824, which the last bison were in Alabama in the 1790s.
Okay.
So they were observing bison trails 20 years after they were gone. But down at the bottom is a trace called, just north of that is a trace called Gaines Trace, which in 1810 they asked, they got permission from the Cherokee to widen that trace to where they could get wagons down it. So that tells you that was a pretty narrow trail through there.
Yeah.
And it was probably a bison trail that the Native Americans were using, and that bison trail was probably going to and from this lick, this sulfur spring, where they were drinking the water and eating the soil.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty incredible. And that's a spot Luke and I were just talking about a couple days ago about maybe that's something we should highlight as a possible area to get Forever Wild to look into.
Yeah, I can tell you there's a very compelling story there about those bison traces. And
now it doesn't border any public lands, but even more reason to buy it because we need public lands in places there aren't public lands.
Totally.
So maybe, and it's timber company land, so maybe there could be some connections made there to get this secured and bought and create some opportunities for people to recreate and hunt possibly, and also protect some history. But there's more I want to do with that. I really want to sit down and try to map out some possibilities of where these licks were.
Isn't there a plant that was co-evolved with the bison that catches in their hair?
Yeah, so on these glades, and Jeremy French can tell you a lot more about bison wallows. And
I just watched his podcast with Lake Pickle.
Yeah. Lake asked me for a bison expert, and I was like, here's one right here. And I connected him with Jeremy, and anyways, I was at a Eastern Grassland Symposium 3 years ago. That was up in Kentucky. And I saw a whole thing about Gattinger's prairie clover, which I see on a lot of these rocky glades and a lot of these places that used to be licks and I suspected to be licks and wallows. And it was talking about how it was associated with bison licks and wallows because the seed would stick in their hair. But also, if you look at other prairie clovers, they stand up. They're either like a single stem plant that sticks up straight. I don't know, purple prairie clover, white prairie clover, they might have one or two stems, maybe 3 or 4, and they stick up straight. If you step on that plant, you're breaking the stem and it falls over. Leafy prairie clover, it gets 3 or 4 foot tall in the right conditions, and so you step on that plant, it's going to break the stem, it's going to die. Gattinger's prairie clover lays over on the ground, so you can stomp and do jumping jacks on top of it, and it's not going to kill the plant. And it's evolved that way because it was used to being wallered over.
Yeah.
And And now there's like all sorts of other plants that I've grown where I've noticed the same thing, like light poppy mallow. It kind of grows out that way, lays over, so when you step or wallow on it, it's not going to break the stems. Things like sensitive briar, it does the same thing. It lays over and creeps.
Right.
And it's like seed pods are real thorny, so that would easily stick in the hair of a bison.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if maybe that one's one that can do that as well. But that Gattinger's, we've got places that were kind of high knobs on the end of a rocky mountain, like a rocky limestone mountain, kind of tapers off at the end to where there's like a high knob, and it's like the highest spot in the prairie. It's the highest spot in the Molten Valley that a bison can get on top of and catch a breeze.
You can keep bugs off of them because that's what they do out in the prairie. And,
And because they can't get up that limestone mountain, there's so many boulders and cracks and stuff, but they can get up on top of that knob. And it was a glade in the 40s from aerial photos. It was wide open. Now the only part that's wide open on it was where the power line just happened to cut across right on the top of this glade.
Yeah.
Got real lucky there, because if that power line wasn't there, it would have closed in.
Right.
And lost all those plants. So now the landowners opened this whole place up to, on both sides, remove cedars, and we've been able to expand this glade, which is covered in those.
And the native plants are in there waiting for light.
Oh yeah,
that's blew my mind. Remember I told you I was up on Royal Blue in Huntsville, Tennessee.
Yeah,
and they had sprayed that right away and stuff, and then they neglected it it was big blue stem. Would that make sense?
Yeah.
So anyway, it all came back in. This had been absolutely, half of it was coal mined.
Yeah.
And then half of it was just this forest that looked like old growth forest to me. Mm-hmm. But when that was removed, the prairie seed bank was under there.
Yeah.
And for how many, 150 years?
Yeah, I mean, and it's not always the seeds too. Sometimes it's just the plant itself. So
it's waiting.
Yeah, on one of these glades that we manage, there's hundreds of little light poppy mallow plants where it sends up. This plant can get huge, like grow out, stretch out pretty far, and get pretty tall. But it was sending up one or two leaves, the tiniest leaves, where their leaves usually get like, the size of a softball. They were the size of a ping pong ball. And it put on one or two. Wouldn't flower, but they were everywhere, hundreds of them. Well, we come in and...
It's just keeping itself alive.
Yeah, yeah. We come in and burn it. We come in and burn it, remove a couple cedars. Next year, they all flower, and they make bigger leaves because they had the sunlight they needed.
Yep.
But they were just hanging on. They were in survival mode for who knows how long.
Right.
Waiting on that moment that a tree blew over.
Yeah.
A tornado came through.
Right.
A bison rubbed up and pushed over a cedar tree or whatever.
Letting the light in.
Yeah. So they were waiting on a hot fire during the summer to come through and open it up. Like they were just waiting on it, that opportunity, and we're not allowing a lot of those opportunities to happen because we've removed things.
Right.
Like people think that us coming in and adding fire or removing trees, well, that's human intervention. Nature doesn't need humans. Well, we're part of nature. I mean, that was our job, to help nature, but also we've removed things that aren't allowing these plants to thrive like they once were. So it's not that we're doing something or not doing something. It's that we've removed something. Like we've removed fire, we've removed bison, and I've been looking for years. I saw this somewhere, and I've been looking and looking and looking. And I can't find it, but it was like 2022 in Alabama alone. There was like 790 lightning strike fires that were put out. Like imagine those fires weren't put out.
Right.
Like that would have burned the whole state. And so I'm not saying we should let lightning fires burn across the state, but where we know an ecosystem needs fire, we should be adding fire. If we're taking that fire away, we should be doing it in a safe way during a safe time of the year or whatever.
You bet.
So I don't know. That's
I've watched it. I mostly got around the longleaf, and that's really successful. Like down in Conecuh National Forest, I mean, I wish people who are not paying attention to like what's going on with Forest Service and public lands and the funding and sell off the public lands and do this, all this. I wish they would go to the Conecuh National Forest and look at the longleaf program and everything associated with the pitcher plant. They did that system. Those foresters, a guy named Derek Colbert, they're just doing the Lord's own work there. And it's not happening on private, because when you leave the Conecuh, it's a loblolly industrial forest right on the private.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of that. I was part of that with my company when I was in college planting loblolly, and I worked for all the timber companies.
Well, that gives you a right to talk bad about it, right?
That's right. That's right.
Because you're part of it.
That's right. I did it. Here it is. But that's the place where it's not the only place. You can go to the Bankhead too. But you go look at the application of fire and the biodiversity that's come back in the Conecuh, and look at what you want for the future, which is I'm gonna for limestone glades, which I'm fascinated by, because I grew up playing like with plastic cowboys and horses and stuff, and it was the desert, right? It was really hot. And I would go out there by myself and I would play in this limestone glade, which was the closest I could get to the desert I saw on Western movies when I was like 6, 7. And so I had this I knew what they were, but I never, until I was 40, I didn't know what they meant.
Yeah.
But I'm going to refer you to Native Habitat Project for that, for you people just to go there and start looking at your content and what it is, because I know we're getting to the end of this, and I want to get some of the goals you have, like knowing what you know. If we could do something, if you could if you had a goal and you could state it. And there's one more question that would be, why is this so important to you? Is it just because it's so interesting? I don't want to answer it. What makes this? I asked Joe Jenkins, flattened musk turtle biologist, so the guy who knows more about flattened musk turtles than anybody in the world and is kind of responsible for making sure that there's some left. Why is that important to you? And he had a great answer about Aldo Leopold's keeping all the parts and that stuff. But why is it important to you?
I think the story of the land and the story of how the landscape is treated is that's the story of us. Like when history books look back on our generation, it's going to be a lot of that is going to be what we did to the landscape and how we treated it. And I don't know, it was such an important part of my life. I think people need it. I think people need it as a place to go and heal and re-energize. And I can promise you I'm not going, because I worked there for years, I'm not going to Bridge Street Shopping Center to re-energize myself. I can promise you that. I worked in an outdoor store there and when I was in college, but like that's not
down in Huntsville.
Yeah,
I went to see the Avatar in that new movie theater when they first built that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you ever went in Mountain High down there, you might have ran into me. But,
gotcha. An earlier version.
Yeah. I was rock climbing and hiking and backpacking then, and I looked a lot different. I was about 60 pounds lighter, but yeah, that's not where I go to re-energize, and I think that's something you can only get from nature, and that's something I struggle with, like that area of Limestone County that's being annexed by Huntsville, it's being annexed by a city council that's making decisions for an area that they have no history with. Like they don't know what used to be there and how that, they don't know much about those communities, and that's why things end up happening where you have, have you been through Belmina?
Yes.
And they have the rock quarry. I'm not joking. You can stand in the parking lot of the post office, downtown Belmina, and I can throw a rock onto the rock quarry property. In the middle of town. And it's because they don't care and they don't have any investment in that community. But that's what I was getting to is the Mooresville, whole area there in Mooresville is about to be, 5,000 people put on that spot. And it's on one side of things, that's 5,000 people who are going to have a lot of access to Wheeler National Wildlife Refuge and nature which I think neighborhoods need. Like kids need to be raised places where they can explore nature.
I'll point out, though, that the wildlife refuges right now are being defunded and proposed for, like, total revision under this government we're in.
Yeah.
So people are going to have to speak up if we want the National Wildlife refuges to continue.
Yeah, but also, that's a very sensitive area that probably doesn't need that much pressure. And there's zero green space on this 400-acre development. They're developing it every inch of it. But then when they're
That's where the whooping cranes were?
Yeah, we're on that same property, 5 whooping cranes standing on that same property that won't be here in May. But, when you look at, I don't know, that development should be creating its own green space. Like we should be building communities and neighborhoods that provide that green space already and aren't putting pressure on our public lands. And when they're advertising this neighborhood as having a green space, well, they're advertising the public's green space. They're advertising our public land as being the green space for this neighborhood.
As an asset to help them sell this,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. But I'm like, this neighborhood should be the one, they should be adding green space. That should be a requirement for places children are raised, because I believe children need access to the outdoors, and it's a necessity. It's an absolute necessity in my mind, and that's why I care so much about it. And I think it's something I had a freedom to explore from a very young age, and maybe I might have had too much freedom out in the woods, but like I always found my way back home, and it was, it's the place I wanted to be and the place I relax. And
I think Worth and I were talking about this earlier this morning, of the people who are paying attention at all, a majority, maybe it's slim, would totally agree that our lives are enriched by access to natural spaces and the mystery and wonder of a green space. Not that's a true green lawn I'm talking about. I'm talking about our actual function in wild place, even if it's in the midst of a housing development.
Yeah.
And this makes us boost your immune system. It's going to make you a healthier person. The United States of America actually used to understand this, and it was part of the reason behind the Land and Water Conservation Fund established in 1964. It was part of the Erodible Cropland Program and the CRP that came after it. It was part of, especially Land and Water Conservation Fund, because they paid for places. They wanted children to be active. You could swim in a pool, so they would fund a swimming pool, even though it was an environmental, conservation thing. They wanted people and that was part of national security. I go through this all the time. After I read the Too Fat to Fight study in the 1990s, they couldn't get people into shape. You knew about that, Worth. They couldn't get them into shape to get in the Marine Corps and pass the test because they didn't have access to ballparks and swimming pools and all this stuff. So it was a national security thing to create a healthier foundational America. Mm-hmm. And I have been on this ever since. I'm like, this is the interest on the principle of doing the right thing. Yeah. You have healthy children, and their minds are expanded by looking at 12 different kind of stingless bees. Holy smokes, what is that? Yeah. Some child says. And the other one, we used to take these moths and make people eat them. We would fight over, and the loser would get held down and would shove a moth in his mouth, right?
Yeah,
but that was
I did that when I was a kid, for sure.
Yeah, I mean that, and man,
I was on the eating side.
I was going to say I ate my share.
Yeah,
but like stuff like that, right? And it's just I swear there's a level where we're talking about deep nature. Yeah. Deep observation, and we're also talking about societal sanity at the same time for people. And
I don't need this. I don't think the slogan should be "Kids should eat moths." We need places that kids can eat moths. But, we might need to remove that.
Tone it down a little bit.
But we need places kids can see moths for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So if and I think we can leave it, but I want to go to what I'd like to go forward. One, I just direct people to Native Habitat Project and what y'all are working on now and your YouTube channel. Yeah. But beyond that, I think it's time for all of us to work on something that piece of ground you're talking about in Mooresville, how do we serve multiple purposes here? And this is not inventing the wheel, because in Montana, where there's big elk migration stuff and winter range, they have worked out things with wealthy people to have 5 house sites instead of 350, and put the rest in conservation easement. That has an access component for the regular folks to also go on a walk. You know, maybe not hunt, but go on a walk. And so the expansion of those things, this is possible. Dude, we got Walls of Jericho under Forever Wild. I thought that was never going to happen.
Yeah, that was awesome.
It was. It's a net positive for everybody, right?
Yeah.
So
I'd also like to say too, we work with large developers to kind of ease the I guess impact that they have on the landscape by installing prairies. And so we you know, like you said, you take a 100-acre cotton field and develop 50 acres of it, and take the other 50 and plant prairies. I mean, even if it's 10 acres of 100, plant prairies on it and make it better than what it was when you found it. And that, I feel like those are steps in the right direction. And we do that all over the country, mostly the Southeast, but we do it all over, installing prairies, the exact prairies that should be on that site with the same plants and everything. And I think that's a great tribute to the history of the landscape. And if we're, you know, they call it progress, if we're going to keep developing and using the land, I think we need to pay tribute to what was here, and taking those marginal spaces and putting them back into the ecosystems that should be there. I think that's a great way to do it. And so that's some work we're doing that I'm really excited about. So we're working with some pretty big companies doing that. So.
Right. And you're running, I mean, this is the way forward. That's what, I mean, I saw that as soon as I met y'all. And that was before I got on the Southeastern Grasslands Institute. And y'all put me onto that.
Dwayne was making videos before I was, and just some truly inspirational Facebook videos. They'd be, you know, some of them be 2 to 3 minutes long. Some of them were probably 10 minutes long, but huge inspiration to me. And I tell him all the time he needs to make more videos, but I think he's got more important things to do now. Well, they're doing a lot. They're doing a lot.
They are doing a lot, and there's a lot going on. That's why I'm headed up there in the morning early to meet them.
Good.
But you have a presence on the videos, like when we did that smoke tree cut the other day, and it's just like it's a normal thing for you to go into the woods and look for interesting stuff. And we cut that smoke tree that was totally dead and laid there, was going to go to it was being used by those coons as a ramp. I get
more than
that.
a ramp, they were doing more than
it was the bathroom and the ramp to somewhere, but
I hope that's not why it's yellow.
So we just took a piece of it, you know, and I think that video is it touches people in a way maybe that a policy video never will. Because this is us interacting with a cool thing, make it a cool thing, paying attention. You know, and
I'm hoping to do some stuff with that wood that's going to give back to other people who are making a difference in our state. So that's going to be interesting. I don't want to give it away yet, but
right on.
I'm hoping to do some cool stuff with it, and that'll also give back. And I don't know, it's such a cool tree, such a cool color of wood as well, and so I think it'll be neat to see something done with it.
Now I think my takeaway there was that where that you call that a white ash that came down, it busted out, and it's not the emerald ash borer here yet killing them.
Well, some of them probably, but not. It's not like we still have ash trees, not like some places.
But that one came down and it ripped off part of that smoke tree. And then on the side of the smoke tree, this is what I took away from that. On the side of the smoke tree that was pointed at the new opening to the sky was all that new growth going up.
It was only on the side that was that tree fell.
It could have been a Kyle Lybarger like Exhibit A of why you make openings in forests, and like what can happen when you create a little bit of mayhem that opens up the world to the sky and to the rain.
There's always something there taking its place, and that's what stinks in like urban areas when those big trees are lost. There's nothing there to come up underneath them or take their place. usually whatever's at Home Depot.
Yeah.
We don't let trees regenerate anymore.
Right. Well, I'll let you go, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate
yes,
it.
sir.
We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree.